Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor, he's Adrian Lacey, and how fitting this week, on this week's episode, it's almost like life imitating art, imitating life, imitating art, I never know when to get off on this one. That's
like life imitating art.
Yeah, life imitating art, imitating life. Well, you get the idea with that. But no, I was just saying that we're gonna slab a comedy program with "not normal" in the title, and here we are, the two of us. You know,
that's why I was drawn to, or got very excited about the show, as I will reveal later on.
Oh, okay. Quite fitting, isn't it, really? I think quite apt. If you've never come across the Comedy Slab podcast before, then where have you been? Where have you been? We've missed you so much. We wanted you to be with us all the time from the very start. You can go back and listen to the others. We'll tell you more about that a little bit later on. But if you've not heard us before, we get together every week. Well, pretty well every week. I think we've only missed one through a technical difficulty. But Adrian's bought the cream, and I think it's all cleared up now, hasn't it, mate? Is it all...
close enough. I haven't put it up on anti-social media, but it's a thought, isn't it?
I think those cotton trousers are doing you the power of good, I'll be honest with you. But
I just don't think I'm meant to put them on my head, that's all.
I don't know. Thought you were a Newcastle fan. You have to be in the know with that one. I'll explain. Yes. I'll explain it later.
I'm older.
Each week we alter you when you're older. We alternately choose a comedy program to watch or listen to, because we choose from radio, TV, internet, wherever we can get them from, really. We watch and listen to the program that we've chosen to put on the slab, and then we get together and do this bit, the talking about it and letting you know the bits we liked and we didn't like, a kind of review, if you like. Purely based on our own experiences. We'll give the programme that we've been slabbing a mark out of 5 each, giving it a grand total out of 10. Anyway, it's my turn to choose last week, so I chose a new to BBC comedy called Alma's Not Normal. But more of that in a second. Before we do any of that, though, let's grab some comedy news and see what we've seen in the comedy news pages. And it was one I saw this week, actually. It was an article about David Renwick, the guy. Because you're not a Victor Meldrew fan, are you, as much as I am?
The trouble is, I don't believe it, if you'll pardon the expression.
Hey, hang on, let me write that down. That could be. Hang on.
That could be a catchphrase, couldn't it? But
what was it? I'm finding it unbelievable. Did you say? What was the?
I'm incredulous. Yeah. I don't believe it.
Anyway, so I saw this article about David Renwick and seeing that he's writing a book of Victor, and they're saying, he was kind of resurrecting Victor Meldrew and writing this book, or he's written this book, actually. And I thought of you instantly, because you're
because I'm a grumpy. No, something else.
Because you're writing at the moment. So that's one of the major projects that you're working on. You're doing some writing, and I sent you a letter home, but that's not the point. Can you imagine how much my flabber was gasted when I saw that he was saying that he didn't enjoy the process, he didn't like writing, and I thought, if you'd written something like, was it seven or 8 series of One Foot in the Grave? Jonathan Creek created and wrote as well, another great series of a completely different type. How could you not enjoy the process, knowing that you'd created such work? But you kind of relate to this, don't you? Do you feel the same?
Well, I do and I don't. My favourite quote, but I wish to goodness I could remember who'd actually said it. But in the absence of that, I'll just try and carry it off as my own, which is basically what I'm doing with the whole book. It's called Great Expectations. It's absolutely original. Nothing to do with some bloke what wrote it 100 years ago and more down this way. There is a quote of an author who was asked, "Do you enjoy writing?" To which his reply, after some thought and a long pause, was, "I enjoy having written." And apologies if anyone's heard me quote that before, but by golly, I'm going to quote it again in future because it's so perfect. I said that, actually, I was asked that by a BBC colleague. He was a presenter stroke journalist. He was actually asking me about swimming. I can't remember how we got talking about that. Bit of small talk before he started presenting the show. And I said, it's a bit like that writer who said, and I said, I enjoy having swum. But now I can actually say that's before I started this long, arduous process of writing my first novel. And it is only first draft, but regular listeners may recall I'm over 100,000 words in. some of which are in the right order.
Is there a part of it though? I mean, is it because I would think, and this is, speaking as a man who is an ignoramus in the field and has never kind of had the discipline to sit down and do it, but I just wonder, is it the revisiting and the rewriting and the checking and that process, or is it the first flow of it that you find the toughest?
Well, I'm really only in the first draft stage. So, I mean, that was one of the reasons that I took so many years to even start page 1 of the novel, which was when I read that people would do 8, 9 drafts. I thought, I love words, but I don't know if I love them enough to redraft everything 8 or 9 times or wherever it takes. You never know how long's a piece of string, how many redrafts are you going to have to do. Look, I'm quite fussy even at the first draft stage, but it's, I will quote a writer and give him his name, which is Neil Gaiman. I don't know if you've read any of his stuff, but the masterclass sessions, if anyone's seen those, I keep getting adverts pop up for them on YouTube, or it did. It's not happening so much now. Maybe they're not, they're waiting for the run up to the C word Christmas for a perfect present, which my brother bought me. So Neil Gaiman says in one of these masterclass sessions of his that some of the time it's like driving through fog. So if anyone's had an experience of that, or sitting in the passenger seat thinking, how the hell can the driver see anything if I can't? It absolutely is that process, or has been for me at various stages. I'm lucky at other times that it gains its own momentum. I have to say, I don't find it as painful as Mr. Renwick, and I am saddened to hear that, but it's not the first time I've heard a very accomplished, very successful writer saying it.
How do you mean that? It's like, I mean, in terms of saying that it's like driving through fog, do you mean that you can't find the narrative, or you can't find the words to express the narrative, or?
It's the former. I usually, if I can find the former, I can find the latter. I can work out the words. I've never had any difficulty that I can remember, and I'm very lucky in this. And it just feels like, well, I put a huge amount of credit to my dad, who just loved his words, and this crops up every now and again when I start quoting him on the slab. But in terms of, I've always been able to write sentences. But that's not the same as writing a novel, is it? A novel is thousands upon thousands of sentences, and
it's the connective tissue, isn't it, of it all as well? It's got to all, if it's like it's cause and effect, isn't it? You've got to write this here. That's something's got to happen there, or something should have happened back there. So you're constantly, it's a map, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah. Well, my screenwriting friend Richard puts it like this, that you've got to constantly, as a writer, be able to take the eagle's eye view, so looking high up at the whole picture, because you need to know that, well, there are different ways of working, but that's how he works. He is a heavy-duty planner, but equally, he said, you've got to be able to have the mouse eye view right down with the weeds and the grass and the finding your way at street level, yes, ground floor level, whatever you want to call it.
Fascinating.
And you need to be able to do both and switch between both. Having said that, there are some people, and I'm a sort of hybrid model, a bit like a Toyota Prius, that I know roughly where I'm going, but I don't know the intricacies of the route. So I know I'm dropping off the passenger at King's Cross, but I don't know which of the alleys and byways I'm going to go through to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is a fascinating. It's one of those things that I'm always fascinated by. Before we started, I was just saying, that you ever interviewed writers? I always found writers particularly difficult to interview, and I think it's because a lot of the time is that they spent so much time expressing themselves silently by writing the words down that when you come to have a conversation, it's almost like an alien art form for them. So I always found that very difficult, but I've always found them fascinating because it's a bit like seeing somebody who can draw, isn't it? You go, oh, how'd you do that? How does that work? You kind of want to pick it apart, and you want to. Just before we move on, I've got to ask you this, because it's one of the questions I always wonder about writers. Do you subscribe to the idea that in order to produce something, you have to sit down and write so many words? Today I've got to write this many words, and that's it.
I'm not strictly, although I feel I should be stricter with myself about that, but not in a sort of beating myself about the bonce way.
Right.
You know, you've got your very established writers like a Stephen Fry, who's got quite a few books under his belt now, won't stop writing until he's hit 1,000 words in a day. But he'll do a proper
and they all have to be different. You can't just write the same.
Well, you know, you're allowed to use and it more than once. I found that very early on. I got the hang of that. And actually, depressingly, I use the word but a lot, and that's with one T before you ask. And there I go, using it.
You see, now that's interesting because that's a negative word, isn't it? Whereas I was always taught that if you write the word "but," you're writing something bad's going to happen. If you write the word "and," something good's going to happen.
Or I don't know. I'd have to analyse it. That sounds, shall we say, slightly simplified.
I like it. I think it's good. I think it was my English teacher that taught me that. I don't know.
Well, you might want to check their qualifications.
I could have.
But so, just steering it back to Mr. Renwick, a proper professional who's actually done this stuff for years and done it successfully. But I just wanted to quote one or two lines where these were the upsetting ones. Yeah, as he says. Writing for me, he says, has always been the most arduous chore, never a labour of love. I mean, it's that never. And for me, every now and again, when the fog lifts, it's fantastic and really satisfying.
Well, you look at the way Larry David works, you know, again, with Curb, you get to see it all, you know, with Curb Your Enthusiasm. But yeah, I mean, here's another one. Anyway, we must continue. We must crack on because people have joined us to find out what's on the slab this week. And I already mentioned it was Alma's Not Normal. What can I tell you about this? It's if not a full autobiographical piece, it's certainly semi-autobiographical by the writer and performer Sophie Willan, who I'd not come across before, and I don't think you have you? I've seen.
No, I confess.
She'd done stand-up and stuff like that, but I'm guessing you came to this fresh, new, seen it about and not watched it, or what?
Well, what happened, I think I just discovered it because it was given prominence on the iPlayer, that's the future and indeed the present really now for a lot of viewers. It's not the front cover of the Radio Times as it might have been in the past. And so people were killed to get their show, maybe not literally, we hope not, on the front page of iPlayer. But, you know, the nature of these things, it can be there for an hour and then gone later that day. In practice, it tends not to be. But so I discovered it that way, sat down with my girlfriend and watched 5 minutes of it and don't want to give too much away, but then someone else recommended it. And then you came along and said, that's your homework, son. So it's not really a recommendation, more that's your homework, whether you like it or not.
I said order. You just get on with it, lady.
You're the governor.
Yeah. Okay, so shall we have a quick listen to the first clip, because it is quite near the start of the programme that I've chosen, just to kind of set the scene for people. It is, as I say, it's about Sophie, really. It's about her life. And it flashes back to her childhood as well. So it's about how, I'm not sure how far in the past her life part of it is, but obviously it goes right back to when she was a young girl, 6, 7, I guess, years of age, and the trials and tribulations of her life. So we see the opening shots. We kind of follow the woman who we later know to be the Alma of the title. She's on a bike. She's riding through the streets of Bolton, which is something we also pick up a little bit later on. And she arrives at the job centre. Do you know? It is a comical battleground, isn't it? The job centre always has been. If you think of all the times that you've seen the job centre in a comedy programme, even just as the occasional scene. It always works so well. Let's see if it does the same here. She arrives at the job centre where after she arrives and starts, because she's been on a bike and she's been out of puff and that, she has a drink from the water cooler but finds out they've got no cups. So she sticks her head underneath and tries to have a drink like that. And then she heads in for her job seekers interview.
So what job experience have you got?
Well, I actually want to be an actress.
What job experience have you got?
My boyfriend had his own business and I used to help him out. But he recently left me, Carol, for a younger, not hotter, thank you, but younger woman. Has that ever happened to you?
No, it
Do you know what? I
hasn't.
can tell you, it's absolutely shit, Carol. Do you know, he left me knowing full well that I won't be able to cover my rent this month.
Right, let's get back on track, eh?
Yes. Oh, your one looks nice. Safe. Meaty. You see, you've got your own weird shit going on, clearly. And you've found someone who digs it. That's what I need. Somebody who actually embraces my quirks.
I'm sorry that you've had a difficult time. Our plan here is to get you back on track.
Yes, and that's what I want. I just want to throw myself into a career. Forget men, I'm a career woman now.
Here we go. I have a job match for you.
Fabulous.
Sandwich artist at Sub and Go.
Sandwich artist. What am I doing, painting the sandwiches?
No, making the sandwiches, using the till, dealing with customers.
That's not what I want to do.
You don't have many options, love.
Well, I wasn't given any options. I had to watch it, as we've gathered. But you'll be wanting my reaction in the form of some snappy tabloid headline.
Yeah, well, you can do it through the medium of dance. It's up to you.
Okay.
Oh, you tapped into it.
Hey, I would say Alma's a bit too normal. Now, that needs footnotes, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
it's not a particularly good headline.
Yeah.
The subheadline would be a reminder of the phrase, if people are, as I'm sure they are, familiar with the phrase, human beings can only bear too much reality. I think it's ascribed to Oscar Wilde.
Okay.
Ring any bells?
Yeah.
It certainly rings true with me. On the one hand, I speak with a forked tongue. On the one hand, people can make comedy about anything. I don't think and I probably said this just the other week, I think, on the slab. I don't think we should decide anything is off limits, or certainly not in advance of being allowed to talk about it, and for writers and would-be writers to be able to juggle around ideas and, the brainstorming thing. This I just found too much grit and not quite enough laughs. So teeth were gritted rather than mouth open guffawing.
Do you think it's interesting? Because I kind of I liked her. I don't know what I couldn't all the way through both times I watched it. There's something about her that I really liked. There's something that I warmed to in either her as a person. I think I've seen her do stand up. There's a fair bit of a stand up on YouTube, and whilst I'll be honest with you, I'm not a massive. The problem with watching things like that is that she does the same material twice in two different videos. And you kind of think, oh no, she's just done that, because obviously it's put up by different people and all the rest of it. But watching her stand up, you can see the bits of. I'm assuming that when she does stand up, she's more like her in real life, and you can see bits of Alma in her and vice versa. But there is something about her that I warm to, and I don't really know what it is. I still couldn't put my finger on it. But do you think the reason that you didn't warm to it is it that kind of ladette sort of things? The kind of I drink pints and swear with the rest of them, and that is that.
I think that's in the mix. I don't think that's the full story. I think I reached a conclusion this afternoon on the second viewing that and I won't be the first person to spot this in myself. I'm a bit of a hypocrite, because on the one hand I say, let's make comedy about anything, and in that would be, let's make new comedies that push the boundaries and that resemble real life rather than this style-struck, sort of stage-struck type of glossy sitcom that we would have had in the past and will continue to have, and it should be part of the mix. But then when it actually gets to it, someone makes something really gritty, I think, whoa, I haven't quite got the stomach for it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that speaks well to me, really. It's certainly any mark I give at the end will have that caveat. I'm glad it's been made, and there's absolutely a place for this in the comedy firmament. But whether it's got me attached to it as a viewer, I'm really not sure.
You didn't think there was much of a gag count in there either, then? Because
no.
Like in the first couple of minutes, up until that scene, she does a bit where she does a flashback and she says about what she was like as a kid. She says, think of Mowgli with a mullet, or the baby in Train Spotting. And, you know, and even when she said, like, to that woman in the job centre, she said, you've got your own weird stuff going on there. And they cut to a picture of the woman in the job centre, and we're guessing it's her partner or a friend or whatever, all dressed in Star Wars gear, aren't they? Kind of thing. So there was, you know, sort of physical comedy or visual comedy and gags, and I thought, no, actually, this like first 5 minutes I was kind of really settling into it and really feeling it. It really warmed me up straight away,
and I wish I could join you in that. And I don't fully understand. I think we talk every now and again about anchoring, you know, that classic human as a foible, really, a weakness in potentially all of us, where we decide something and then we look for the evidence to support it.
Yes.
And something went wrong, really, from the first scene, and not quite the first frame, but the interchange with the kids. And when I watched it a second time, I found it even less funny than the first time. And I thought, so you get off on I got off on a bad relationship with it straight away, because I just didn't find what the kids were saying. It was just, it was gritty. It was, you couldn't argue that it wasn't believable. I can't quote it word for word now, but it just was a bit ordinary. I thought, if that's the beginning of a series, if you're putting you don't put all your aces in the first scene. You've got to hold something back to work up to a crescendo and all of that. And I think that certainly didn't help. I can't say that, hopefully that's not the full story, but it's just, you know, if I was commissioned to write something gritty, there's, you know, I couldn't do it this well, but I get a feeling that it feels like I would have to fall back on doing it by numbers. And there's something, even though you're telling me it's autobiographical, or a lot of it is. Obviously, she's got to have some artistic license, but it just feels to me like someone has gone out of their way to, can we have more effing and jeffing and more smoking and women putting themselves down and putting blokes down, and that just all felt a bit by numbers. But clearly it wasn't feeling that way for you.
I mean, even in flashback now, when I'm remembering it, and I was going to say to you, actually, you know, you're talking about grit, and I mean, it is, as I say, it's at least semi, but possibly autobiographical, full autobiographical content from her. And you know, and I was saying, it's quite grim stuff, you know, about a mother being I think she was a heroin addict, certainly a drug addict. And even when I said that, I thought back to when you see she goes to visit her mum, and her mum's had dentures, these massive dentures, and I thought, I really loved the way there was that juxtaposition of this kind of grim, gritty subject matter, but she manages to sort of just winkle something in that kind of makes you, mother was a heroin addict, winkle something in that kind of makes you go, it's just ridiculous. And like, you know, they both, her mother and her mother's boyfriend had new teeth, but the mother's boyfriend couldn't eat with his. And
Well, there was a line there which, again, I wanted to find funny about. Was it something about when they kiss? It's like, I don't know. She had some image which, again, in theory, it felt like it could be a gag. You could tell from the timing it was meant to elicit laugh. I just found it too painful. The idea of, I don't know, it's almost literally too close to the bone, you know, when you talk about having no teeth, and they are sort of bone, aren't they?
Yeah.
It was all too painful. I don't know whether it's, well, if I'd had that life, that I would have permission to make of it what I will, which is what, you know, everyone's entitled to do within the limits of the law, you know, tell their own story. Or was it that some elements of it did resemble mine, although my life's been very different, but some were uncomfortably close, and I just don't find that funny.
I found, and it's interesting because they're from the same neck of the woods. Did you see a lot of Peter Kay in her?
You know, when I hear the word or the place name Bolton, I'm immediately thinking of him, but I don't know, apart from the accent and a certain amount of the rhythm of the words, I didn't think, oh no, this is drawn from the same well, or no, I didn't particularly see, you know, even if he talks about a working class background, it seems absolutely lavish, like, palatial and like being royalty compared to what Paul Willen's gone through.
Yeah.
Maybe she doesn't want us to think of her as Paul Willen because it's fed her humour and, she's making comedy capital out of it.
I saw a reviewer described it as Phoenix Nights meets Fleabag. And by that, I'm guessing it's like kind of the northern humour out of dark situations versus the independent female telling her story. Yeah, you know what I mean. I kind of that's. I think that's as far as it. I mean, when they're looking for comparisons, that's the nearest I could get to it in that sense.
I think. I mean, look, it's a moderately helpful shorthand, isn't it? But beyond that, I don't think you can prod those parallels or that combination too much before it all falls apart. Fleabag, as far as I'm aware, her mother wasn't a heroin addict, and she's definitely much more gentrified. Where did you see that comparison? Presumably not your favourite liberal news organ, The Guardian.
No, I think it was the Mirror.
Right.
The newspaper, not the one on the wall in the lounge.
So you weren't talking to yourself.
It wasn't me, just muttering to myself again, yeah.
Which you did for years as a radio presenter. But credit to you, you made a living out of it.
Yeah, it kept me off the streets, didn't it, I suppose, really.
For a while.
Yeah, it's the whole kind of bleakness of it. I don't know. I didn't come away with that. It's interesting, isn't it, that if you go back and watch something like The Boys from the Black Stuff, where that really, really is, teetering on the edge bleak, isn't it, really? And they do find the humour in that, but you come away and you feel, well, I did. I felt really beaten up by the whole thing, and I felt like I'd really been through the mill. But with this, for some reason, and I really still don't know why, but I came out of it thinking that I felt upbeat about it in a way, and I certainly was left sort of wanting more.
I like that. You're either beat up or you're upbeat.
Yeah, one or the other.
Thank you for that. I'm just making a note. Right. I'm sure I can slip that into the novel.
Write that down with "I don't believe it."
But I need to get those words in the right order, don't I? Up and beat and beat and up.
And yeah, the right way around as well. To the phrase in the right order as well.
Yeah.
There were like nice little conversation things that they're not full on gags. Have you ever baked bread? No, but I bought a loaf once that wasn't sliced. Which is like.
See, I'm laughing now when you deliver it. It's the usual story. But I think you should just read out the script of all the shows we put on the slab, and I would find all of them funny.
And then there was stuff that I thought, oh no, that shouldn't have got in there. Really, I think it was her mom was saying. She said, "Oh, look at me! She said, I'm starting to look like Nicolas Cage," which I did think was quite funny actually. And then she was talking about the benefits of steam rooms on the skin. She said, "Oh, every morning I stick my head in the kettle." And I thought, oh, nah.
Yeah, it didn't quite work.
But you kind of, you give them that kind of thing. I mean, I thought the writing, the pacing, the construction of it. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, you probably did as writing yourself, but like within about the first 8 minutes, she'd been round and introduced us to most of the main characters, like her mother, her grandmother, her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, her friend. And I thought it's really clever the way they kind of, without being really full on overt about it and but being very obvious and very clunky. I thought that was, it was only the second time I watched it, I kind of thought, wow, that is really quite something, the way that she's written that.
No, I would have to be honest and say that you've made me aware of that, which is clearly a compliment to her writing skills and how smoothly that's done, and also the directing process and so on. And I have to say, I was drawn to the title. I was sympathetic with someone not being normal. I thought, as usual, I will see myself in them. Maybe I can't stand my own reflection too much, but it just disappointed up against the idea of this. I don't know. I had almost no idea of what it might be, but that it would be an eccentric character, and I guess it ticks the box for that. Hard not to be eccentric with that kind of background, but But then everyone's normality is their normality, isn't it? Everyone's life is normal to them. It's like dividing a number by 1. You just get the number again. So when someone says, I had a normal upbringing, you think, all of us did, but we can't agree what it should have been or what.
Is, I must admit, I did for a long time suffer from a condition where I thought that everybody lived their life like I did. And it was only when I went out.
What a horrible thought!
It was only when I went out in the rubber underpants and noticed nobody else was. That
and the pink galoshes.
Yeah, that I thought, I've got to stop this now. Should we have another clip? And
I think so. We've got to stop that. The images you're putting in our mind.
That's for a start. We need to do that. But I just wonder because whether people will go, well, okay, I haven't watched it yet, so play us a bit more, and we'll have another listen and see whether we can raise a titter. In the second clip, after a busy and very drunken night of karaoke at a local club, Alma and her good friend Leanne, more of her in a sec, sit down on a wall to enjoy a nice kebab.
You absolutely smashed that song, babe.
I know. I think it's my raw sexual energy. So did you. Grace of a swan, as always.
Hi, babe.
Hello, ladies.
Oh, Glenn, I'm not going to shag you.
Fair enough.
Hey! Look! There's Winky Ann!
Doesn't that look right? God, her eye looks great.
Yeah, good investment, that.
Oh, I need my own money, me. Now I'm going to sort everything out now on my own. I'm going to get some acting work and I'm going to sort my family out and then I'm going to get a real job. And, I'm going to learn Spanish. And I think I'm going to start tap dancing.
Maybe. Just start with a job first, eh?
Yeah. Doing what?
Well, what skills do you have?
I can hold a 3-litre bottle of cider under my left tip with no hands.
I don't think that's a transferable skill, babe.
You'd be surprised.
Transfer it to the other one, I suppose. A thought occurs to me. Now, a couple of things. I don't know if we've mentioned yet, but we must legally, as well as being interested in such things, say it's an expectation entertainment production. Not necessarily great expectations, but which is, of course, the name of my novel. So there's that, and there's also a mention for, well, you mentioned her character name, Leanne, there alongside Alma stroke Sophie Willan, who plays her. I'm assuming it's pronounced Jade Adams, even though it's spelled slightly unconventionally with a Y in the middle there. But we have to say, would you agree with me, there's a Susan Boyle moment?
When she's singing? Well, she is a singer.
But we're not introduced to that until we wouldn't want to know too early, as it were.
No, I mean she's still kind of breaking through. I recognised her when what was that wee slab, the BBC, where they got new comedians, and
it was in Birmingham, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah,
during lockdown.
Yes,
laughs in lockdown or something.
Stand up for lockdown or something like that, wasn't it? Like that.
Sit down, lock up.
Well. Yeah. Jade Adams was the compere for the one in the Southwest, which I'd actually watched. I watched one of the other episodes, so I recognised her from that immediately. And but yeah, she's listed. I think it's on her own website. She's listed as a stand-up comedian, actress, and singer as well. I think she's I don't know if she's done albums or whatever. But yeah, there was that moment where you kind of she doesn't look like she would be a great. That's a weird thing to say, I know, but she doesn't.
Yeah, but also, I think it's quite clever the way it comes as a surprise. Although, apologies that we've now ruined it for you potentially. But I think you still enjoyed that moment, even the way we're sort of flagging it up without giving too much away. But you don't expect that character, apart from anything else, do you? In the context in which she's working and. Whereas Alma talks about wanting to be an actress, and although I'm guilty of writing about a writer. So who am I to critique an actor talking about her character wanting to be an actor? But something about that is much travelled, shall we say? So to make that work and to make it fresh is, it's setting the bar quite high.
Again, she's surprised. I think the nickname, the Winky Ann, which we've come across this kind of.
I'm going to guess you enjoyed the idea of Winky Ann.
Well, I thought actually she turned it because instead of the two of them sitting there going, "Oh, there's Winky Ann, look at her with her winky eye" or whatever. She turned it into a positive. There's Winky Ann. Oh, that eye! What a great investment having that eye was, because in actual fact, I think Winky Ann is working as an escort, which is where Alma gets the idea to work in the sex industry as well, which is something that Sophie Willan actually did as well, which to say is the biographical part of it. But yeah, I just thought it was nice and refreshing that she turned it into something that was she still got the gag out, but she did it in a positive way. And I thought that's I've never seen that done before. And I do, the writing, I do think was very subtly clever. It's only when you kind of go back and go, well, hang on, let me have another look at that again. You go, yeah, that is quite. I really like the way. Strong cast as well, don't you think? I mean, she got, like I say, you mentioned Jade Adams. I've got to mention Lorraine Ashbourne, who played Joan, and her mom was played by an actress called Siobhan Finneran, who, if you're a fan of Benidorm, which I dipped in and out of. I never really could get on with, really. But she was in that and quite a had a quite a good part in that. But she was also, I don't know if you remember, if you go right back, do you remember Rita Sue and Bob? I was
just reading that moment. I do, and actually, I heard a radio documentary about that, and that's worth a listen. I don't know if it's still up there on your favourite BBC Sounds. It's actually a very sad story. Spoiler alert! It's not a comedy. The actual story of the writer. But yes, somewhat used by a very, even more so then, bourgeois industry, as showbiz was much more then. I'm not pretending it's completely de-bourgeoified, but yes, that's quite a sorry tale, which I hadn't been aware of. But I did see the film once, many moons ago.
It's an Alan Clark film, isn't it? It's directed by Alan Clark. The TV film was in his early career, and stars one of my favourite actors, George Costigan. I don't know if you've come across him before. Who I was absolutely horrified to learn. Because I'd seen him in so many different things. He did a lot of straight acting, did a lot of comedy. And I looked at him, I thought, I wonder what he's doing now. And not surprisingly, he's putting his feet up a bit because he's 70. And you think, yeah, you forget these people age. You think we're all aging.
Yeah.
That's when you kind of know you're getting old, doesn't it, really? But
yeah. Well, there's something about you having your image frozen in time on video or film, however it's done.
Yeah.
That gives the illusion of immortality, but sadly, the person who is so captured in that way themselves is as mortal as any of us. Sadly, we wish it were not so.
A special mention for the line when she goes to visit her mum in she's in kind of a residential care place, isn't she, where there's people with mental health issues, and. They said something about a new guy come in, and they said, "Oh, he thinks he's Jesus." And one of the other patients in there said, "Yeah," he said, "I've told him you're no son of mine," inferring that he thought he was God. I just thought it was just a really tight, well delivered, short laugh, and to me that kind of summed it up. I really did enjoy it. Anyway, should we do some scores on the doors and see?
I guess we can put it off no longer.
Yeah, I know it's with a heavy heart. You never like to kind of not be enamoured with it, do you? I always think you struggle with it a bit. Whereas I'll gleefully give it a 1.
Don't give a hoot.
I don't give a rat's bottom. I don't. So first or second, do you want to go? I don't mind.
Second, I'm still thinking about it.
Okay.
And, yes.
I won't prolong the agony, but I loved it. I thought clever writing, great cast, upbeat despite the fact that it was really grim. I would recommend it. I would say well worth a watch. If it's one of those that you're kind of putting off because you think I don't feel strong enough to watch it now, don't worry. Based on the first episode, I can't vouch for the other 5 in the series, but based on the first episode, go for it, because I think you'll come out of it feeling a bit better than you went in. That's my view. He could say something completely different. So to that, I would give it a 4 out of 5.
Blimey. Have you had a bump to the head? I think you've been generous
on
a number of occasions.
I just really enjoy it. I don't know what it is. Like when I find something I enjoy, I really enjoy it at the moment. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's...
But be honest, because I might have thought it was the other way around. Did you think I would be more receptive to it?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit surprised that you didn't. But I am and I'm not, because I know what it's like, because I've been in that situation as well, where you go in there and there's something that triggers something, and you can be no more specific than that, and you kind of think, I can't get out the doldrums with this one. I don't know what it is, and I kind of, even if you think, well, I want to like it, but and I've been there, and I know the feeling, but I don't know what the answer is.
No, but the answer to the question, how many points out of 5 am I going to give it? Well, even though I try to be good cop, arguably, I'm going to have to say, in terms of my personal reaction, 2.5 out of 5, which is quite low for me. Who knows? God alone knows where the pass mark is. But yeah, so sort of half marks. Wish I could just warm to it in the way I really thought I would. That was going on the title and liking things to be a little bit eccentric, but I just found a little bit too gritty on this occasion, I'm afraid.
As the late great Rick Mayall once said, who knows or dares to dream? So, homework for next week.
Yeah, this is a lucky dip in that I hadn't heard it at the time of choosing it. And it's BBC Radio, so hence on BBC Sounds. Think I don't know the comedian behind it, but it might be that further research reveals he's had a part in something else I know in some other context. Who knows? The show is called Sam Simmons is Not a People Person, and the sort of clue for regular listeners about the kind of comedy we're talking about here is it first went out in the late night slot on a Wednesday. That's sort of code for experimental end of the market, not such weight on having to be sort of family friendly, all things to all people, 6:30 in the evening type comedy. But it's there on catch up. I'm going for the first 2 episodes. I say 2 because they are only 15-minuters, give or take each. So I thought you could spare half an hour of your precious time, can you not?
Oh, yes. For you.
Except,
of course.
Thank you, darling. Although, of course, with us, it's an hour because we listen or watch twice. So the episode titles are as follows: Italians and Magicians. So that's episodes 1 and 2 of Sam Simmons is Not a People Person. You might just catch it as it's going out either on BBC Radio 4 or 4 Extra, otherwise on the catch-up service, BBC Sounds. Happy listening.
All right, looking forward to that one. I always do when it's something I don't really know anything about, or have never, I don't even know him, so it should be quite an interesting one. Anyway, I've got to get off. No time to stop because I'm my never-ending quest to prove my theory that everybody lives their life like me. I'm going for the full rubber suit this time when I go out with the matching mask as well. So I'm going to go out and try that out. If you don't see me coming, you might hear me squeaking because I've run out of talcum powder
on a dark night. I think that's one offer I can probably refuse.